If you're a realtor, obviously we talk about this all the time. You want to stay lean. You want to trim any fat that you don't need in your personal life or your business. You want to get as much cash as possible because opportunity is coming. And the agents who are gritty and work their way through these type of interesting markets, these unique markets, on the other side of that, those make the best agents in the future. Today is April 3rd. It's a Thursday, and we're one day after Liberation Day. So happy Liberation Day. Andrew, Cady, what's going on in the market today?
Well, you've been liberated from your 401k. It's been turned into a 200.5k. I mean, it's absolutely a bloodbath going on in markets right now, which,
Yeah.
which is to be expected. I mean, I think we kind of open this up and talk tariffs. I think you and I probably understand the tariff world pretty well because we're very, very well versed in markets. But there's a lot of people that might not understand why this is such a big deal and why in the long term it'll be good, but the short term it's going to be a ton of pain.
So what's the story with tariffs? Why is Trump doing this?
So, here's just some quick stats. In America, only about 23% of the vehicles in America are made in America. We import in from every other country. Now, you flip that around and you look at Japan, 90% of the Japanese people drive Japanese vehicles. Why? Well, it's because of the tariff situation. So there's huge tariffs that Japan has put in place on American-made vehicles, which makes pricing, if you want to buy, say, they have a 50% tariff on American vehicles, and you want to buy a BMW that costs 100,000, well, it's going to cost you in Japan 150,000, and the country of Japan keeps that extra 50,000 as a tariff profit to the country. So what we've had in this country for a long time is very, very, very low tariffs, export tariffs. And so we've had this situation where there's been no real incentive for American companies to build and manufacture their products in America anymore. Look at Ford moving so much manufacturing to Mexico because it's so much cheaper to build a car. Well, now, if we have a 40% tariff on that, Ford builds a car in Mexico. When it comes back to the United States to be sold, that price gets marked up 40%. So it's really an entire long-term play to rebuild the manufacturing community of America, to bring the jobs back home from overseas. But that's going to be a 12-month play. Like, you're not going to rebuild a factory for Ford in the next month. It's going to take some serious pain to get to a good spot on it. So these tariffs, I think they're necessary, but they're most certainly not happy for markets today.
Yeah, so the market's opened down. I think, let me just check it. It's kind of depressing to look at it, but yeah, the Nasdaq's down 5.75%. The S&P 500 is down 5.5%. So a lot of people were wondering, how big is Trump going to go with these tariffs? Is it going to be like just a 10%? Is it going to be 30%? A lot of people were expecting actually lower tariffs, but if you know Trump's personality type, he's not going to go do low. It's obviously part of a negotiation strategy to get the United States on a better, more fair and equal playing field. And so he's going to go big and then he's going to negotiate from there. So that's what he did. And that's why we're seeing a large sell-off today. And to Andrew's point, we need manufacturing back in the United States. We cannot outsource very important features of our economy. Like, I'm not talking about outsourcing, like making a paper plate. We're talking about, electronic devices, drones, weapons, like all this stuff that's really important for our national security. It honestly should be brought back. Now, doing it in this way where you're kind of hitting it with a sledgehammer versus a scalpel is one approach to do it. I don't know if there is another way to do it, because if you let Congress get in the way, nothing will happen. So, he's racing against time to try to get these policies through as fast as possible before the midterms, where Congress could flip and he wouldn't be able to do these type of moves. And he's said before he doesn't really care about what the stock market does. But why is this important to you? Why are we bringing this up to real estate agents in Jacksonville? How does this impact your business? Why does the stock market matter? Andrew, bring us into what this means. Does this mean anything for the consumer? What does it mean short term and long term?
Yes. So here's kind of the wonderful thing about the real estate world is when we have a really, really bad day in the stock market, like we're seeing today. I mean, a 5% drop, at some point, we're actually going to see trading halted because of such big drops if these continue. When we see days like this, there's something called a flight to safety, where people pull their money, go to cash, they get out of stocks, but they don't just want to park cash, they move it somewhere else. So they move that typically into bonds. And that creates a huge rally in the bond market, which in turn creates a huge rally for mortgage interest rates. And we're seeing that today. I'm not quite sure exactly on open, but we're at 49 basis points better.
Oh, that's great.
In mortgage-backed securities this morning. So what is 49 basis points? Let's break this down to layman's terms, as I always try to do. Well, that's a half point, meaning if yesterday your client got quoted a 6.5 interest rate at one point, the 6.5 interest rate this morning would cost them a half point. On a $500,000 loan, that is $2,500 in savings for your client, just from the market bettering itself today. So we're in a weird world in the real estate world where, yes, this is causing a lot of pain for our investments and for this and that, but overall, it's going to continue to drop interest rates. And I was listening to Cheddar this morning. I've got CNBC up, I've got Cheddar up, I've got all the news sites up in here today. And I think we're just beginning to see this. So Trump, what he put in place on tariffs was actually kind of brilliant. Like I watched his thing yesterday, and it was pretty brilliant because what he did is he took what the tariffs are on our country. For instance, Indonesia has an 84% tariff on American products. They mark it up 84%. And what he did is he put a 50% of their tariff back on them. So Indonesia's tariff is 42%. If Canada had a 50%, well, they put a 25% on it. And he basically said, hey, whatever you're going to slap us with, we're going to slap you with half. And I think it was a brilliant move to not just go all the way and match it, because what it will stop is a lot of reciprocal tariffs. And I do think we're going to see that. So yeah. I do think this is just the beginning, because now over the next few days, you're going to see Indonesia retaliate and say, hey, we're going to take our 84 to 113. And then the United States has the ability to come back and counter again. And a lot of this will just ultimately be a pissing match. And we've seen it with Colombia. We've seen it with Mexico. We've seen it where we put tariffs in, they bow up, they rip all the American products off the shelf, and then a week later, they're like, finally,
yes.
cave.
They get too much pressure from the local business owners and business leaders that they can no longer do business with the United States with this level of tariff.
And the majority of the countries we're putting tariffs on need us more than we need them. There are aspects in this country where we need outside product, but there's a lot of industries that they need us more than we need them. And so there's going to be a lot of negotiation. So I don't think this bloodbath is over. I think we see reciprocal tariffs over the next week, and then additional reciprocal tariffs from the United States. I think you're going to see a lot of countries bow immediately and be like, hey, take our tariffs off and we'll drop ours down by 50%. Because I think that's Trump's ultimate goal. He didn't hit them with 100% tariffs. But what if 85% of the countries that he just slapped the 50% tariff on came back and said, hey, if you take your 50% tariff away, we'll cut our tariffs down by 50%. What does that do? That makes the trade outbound of our country so much more valuable and allows us to say, oh my gosh, now Indonesia is going to buy so much more stuff from us. And again, jobs pour into America. Our manufacturing builds back up. So I think it was a brilliant move going half, because I think there's a lot of countries that'll cave and say, hey, we'll cut our tariffs in half if you take the reciprocal tariff off of us. And ultimately, no matter what happens on that, it's going to be a win-win for America. Sure, you'll have some countries we will go toe-to-toe with, and it'll probably get ugly. But I think the majority of this is a long-term win. But it's going to be 6 months of pain for stocks, because there's going to be a lot of bouncing back and forth on this. But when the stock market gets rocked, guys, it is go time for real estate. I mean, go back to 2020 when the stock market got rocked by 8%, 9% lost days. The Federal Reserve went and cut interest rates to zero immediately. And if we see an absolute meltdown in markets, I'm not thinking the Fed cuts to zero, but it would not be surprising me if we see a couple more days of these bloodbaths to see the Federal Reserve call a special meeting and do a 1% drop on rates. It wouldn't surprise me for a second. And that would immediately bleed into mortgage rates and immediately bleed into, hey, people are ready to buy. Are there going to be people that lose their jobs? Are there going to be people that have less money because of this? Yes, but the drop in interest rates will exceed that. Yes, we'll have more fallout from people that lost their job that can't, complete their home purchase. But for every one you lose, there'll be three more buyers right behind them that haven't lost their job that are ready to go.
So some short-term pain and some long-term gain. In the meantime, rates will drop. The Federal Reserve might step in to kind of prop things up and steady the markets. And so if you're a realtor hearing all this, what do you do differently? Is there anything that you do differently in your business on a day-to-day basis and kind of looking forward at these next 12 months? Because I'm assuming that agents this morning are having phone calls with buyers who are like, I'm not sure I want to buy right now because I see the stock market tanking. And Florida is a very unique state where we have a lot of retirees where their wealth is tied up in their 401k. So when the stock market drops, we usually get a whiplash. We're also seeing a massive wave of active inventory coming on. We talked just a few days ago about how the consumer is completely tapped, how relocations have slowed down, right? So are we expecting, more inventory to come to the market and buyers back off? Prices will drop, which is, by the way, badly needed because we have an affordability crisis. We need the prices to come down and for housing to become more affordable for us to have a next leg up here. I just think it's unsustainable on the current path. But like you said, if the Fed comes in, lowers rates in response to tariff issues to try to prop up the market, it could supercharge housing for at least a short period of time, as long as there's not massive amounts of job loss and other things in the short term, right?
Yeah, it absolutely could. We could see another supercharge. And I don't think we ever see interest rates in the twos again.
Right.
I think
Me
that was
neither.
it was a foolish move by the Fed to do it. And the reason it happened is, you've got to understand, guys, the Federal Reserve was buying in a 60-day window between March and May of 2020. They bought $6 trillion with a T, $6 trillion of mortgage-backed securities and treasuries. So not only did they cut rates to zero, but they became the biggest buyer of mortgage-backed securities and treasuries in a short-term window in the history of the world, which is why we saw rates do what they do. If they cut the interest rates down by 1%, we would see rates with a 5 handle. It would supercharge the market on some level, but we do need to go through a period of pain to get pricing down. And so none of us in real estate or mortgage should be fearful of this. We should be embracing this because so let's look at it and say, okay, if rates came down, I don't think what's going on right now is going to spell the remainder of our year being worse. It might be the remainder of our year being exactly the same as it's been, because rates will come down. You'll have more buyers come. You'll have buyers losing their jobs. You'll have turmoil. But if we can just even maintain this for a year and actually see home values come down, God, I wish we could. If we could see home values come down 10 to 12%, followed by rates continuing to come down, we could actually see, rather than a short supercharge of housing, we could see the remaining 3 years of Trump's administration actually be a nice boom cycle where we see back to 4 to 5% appreciation in the market. And we go back to seeing rates starting with low fives, and we actually see a nice growth market. But I don't think any of us should be afraid of this craziness we're seeing right now. Bad days in stocks equals good days for us. And I would say this to you guys: if you guys at all are investing in real estate and in mortgage, we have the best industry to invest. Why? Because when the stock market's doing absolutely amazing, it typically means that real estate is slow and we're not making a lot of money. But when the stock market crashes, rates get lower, we get a lot of business, we make a lot of money, and we typically can invest in a drop cycle in the market. Like my 401k has averaged about a 33% return over 10 years just by donating 10% of my check. And my check gets bigger when the market's down. And so I think we're in an industry where we've got a lot of wins. This is going to be scary for a lot of consumers. And if I was a real estate agent right now, I would be picking the phone up and calling every single client that had interest of buying a home over the last 12 months, but had trepidation due to market. And we need to be explaining to them that this sell-off in the market is an opportunity in housing because it's going to drop interest rates. And don't let the fear of the stock market stop the buyers from understanding that this is going to be a betterment for rates.
Yeah. So what do you tell to that agent that is like, well, all these consumers are tapped out. These tariffs could be a short-term thing. Like what? Because I'm assuming the buyers are saying, I want to wait, right? Like, let's wait and see. What does that conversation look like? Because I mean, if the Fed is going to drop rates, let's say just 1% hypothetically, in response to this, wouldn't it make sense for the consumer to wait until that rate gets lower?
I mean, there's no way to know, and that's the tough thing.
Right.
Is
The
I
Fed
mean,
might not even step in, by the way, right?
right.
Because they bought mortgage-backed securities, but in their last statement, they said that they're letting their MBS roll off their balance sheet versus, they're kind of buying it. They're buying a little bit of treasuries, but they're not buying mortgage-backed securities. So there is a situation where they could just buy treasuries and not mortgage-backed securities because they think that the housing market is a little bit of a balloon right now. I mean, obviously it was a bubble. It was a Fed-induced bubble these last 2 years. People who bought from 22 to 24 are underwater on their house. So a lot of places around Florida, not every place, but a lot of places around Florida are already down 10, 20% from the peak prices. And when you look at the affordability factor, you need prices to come down another 30%. Well, if that's the case, there's going to be a ton of people underwater. There's going to be a ton of short sales and foreclosure. We have a short sale and foreclosure class coming up later this month, and you want to prepare yourself. So I see your point, Cady. I think there will be a ton of opportunity ahead for buyers to pick up deals and negotiate, and houses might sit a little bit longer because of the fear. But the agents who can get creative, put the deal together, and really negotiate with those sellers who will capitulate. There was already a little bit of capitulation. What that means is like the sellers are starting to get desperate to sell, and they're starting to realize this is the new market price. These are the new market conditions, and they're actually lowering their price to where the market is versus letting it sit. I think there's going to be more capitulation after last night, today, and probably in the next
There
6
will.
months. Where
There
if
will, because how many, you talk about retirees in Florida, how many retirees are paying their mortgage payment with their dividends from their investments? And now their dividends just got destroyed. So we're going to see a lot more capitulation from sellers. And going back to your original question, I mean, there's just no way to know. But what I do know is a rate you get today, you can always refinance in the future if rates drop again. I know that. That's a hard set fact. There's a lot of ways to look at this. The Fed might not step in. Rates would naturally just get better, like we've seen today, about a 0.25% drop today. But another 0.25% over the next week, you're going to have a certain amount of buyers that come to market just with rates drop. So does that mean if there's more buyers in market, theoretically, you have a more competitive market? It could hold home prices steady. Home prices might not come down. I mean, we need them to come down. But if rates dropped 1.5% and home prices, you could see a market where home prices stagnate out right where they're at because there's so many buyers wanting in because the rates have come down. So I don't know the perfect answer of what you tell someone today that says, I'm going to wait, because there's a couple ways to look at it. We could continue to see home values come down and rates come down. We could see rates come down, drive enough buyers back that actually drives home values up, which would be horrible, but it could. Like, that's a real possibility. If you dropped and you added 5 more million buyers to the pool, they might be willing to get into a bidding war because they want to get the house.
On the other side of this, Andrew, too, in terms of the tariffs for retaliation, it is possible that like China and Japan and these other countries that are holding MBS and treasuries could retaliate by selling, and that could spike interest rates, which obviously the Fed would step in at that point and buy them. But so I think the point of this call is like there are so many possibilities of what can happen next. All we can do is report on the ground what's happening day to day. Right now, rates are down 50 bips for mortgages overnight, and it's worth calling your consumer and saying, hey, you can now get this. If rates go down lower in the future, you can refinance. But do your best to get them the best deal possible. We are seeing about 2,000 more active net listings come on the market every single month. It's April. And so, I mean, we could be in a situation where we have more than 14,000 active listings by the end of the year based on the current trajectory of what we're seeing. Obviously, this type of environment where it's very choppy and there will be like you'll see the market swing down 3% and then swing up 3% within a matter of just a single week because of all these conversations and these negotiations. So I think right now is the time. If you're a realtor, obviously we talk about this all the time. You want to stay lean. You want to trim any fat that you don't need in your personal life or your business. You want to get as much cash as possible because opportunity is coming. And the agents who are gritty and work their way through these type of interesting markets, these unique markets, on the other side of that, those make the best agents in the future, and they are super skilled. And so just stick with it, stay with it. There's more opportunity on the other side of this than you can imagine. And there's people who are waiting with cash on the sidelines, waiting for the opportunity where they feel comfortable jumping back in. And there will be that jump in moment. And you want to be there with leverage at that point to jump back in into buying real estate, into obviously you want to double down your sales activities right now. I mean, that's an obvious one. If you're making 20 calls a day, you need to be making 40. If you're making 40, you need to be making 80, because the buyer pool, in my opinion, is going to shrink, but it was unsustainable in the first place. There was no way that this market could continue moving up at the rate that it was for so many years. And honestly, one of the only reasons it moved up so much in Florida, two reasons: relocations because of COVID, and then the government intervention on interest rates. Those are no longer occurring. So of course we're going to, and investor purchases, which were about 35% of all purchases. None of those are happening anymore. So I think we'll have to wait and see, but we're going to keep you posted with the data. And it can go many different ways. Cady, is there any other information you want to share before we pop off here? Because we're about 25 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say mentally, guys, control the controllables.
Yeah.
If the moment you wake up and something that is uncontrollable is what is keeping you up at night or not allowing you to keep focus, take a walk on the beach, clear your head, and go back at it. Control the controllables. The market, we can't control. Interest rates, we can't control. Home prices, we can't control. We can control our sales activities. We can control what we do on a daily basis. I would say each and every realtor in this group, you need to be making a shit ton of noise right now. Like be making noise. Start talking about Hometown Heroes that's going to be coming out in July. Is it going to get funded? I don't know, but make as much noise as you can. Hit social media hard, hit your phones hard, build a following, and become a trusted advisor, and keep your headspace right. Don't let your headspace get clogged up by shit we can't control. All we can do is report on the uncontrollables, but if the uncontrollables control us, we're done. It's over.
Keep that gritty mindset. I love that message. Just stay focused on what matters. And like we had on yesterday's call, we asked why Kevin Mills is the #1 agent in the country at Century 21. And she said, consistency. Regardless of the market conditions, he keeps his head down, takes the listings, makes the calls every single day, builds new relationships, get them in the CRM, does the follow-up. The fundamentals will win, especially during this type of market. You can have no fundamentals on a rockin' market, and have the fish jump in your boat, which we saw a bunch of agents have that. But now you have to go back to fundamentals. If you're not doing the fundamentals now, I don't know if you're going to make it through the next 2 to 3 years. If you stick to fundamentals, you're not going to have a problem at all. And we want to support you in that. So if there's a way that we can help you at the brokerage do that, we've got the focus program, we've got Lolo, we can help you with the events. There's anything that we can do to serve you and your business, reach out to us, because we have a bunch of programs you might not even know about. But if you need help, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're here as a community, here as a tribe. And we can do this. This is just one day in the market. It's very temporary. I'm not sure how long this is going to last, but we'll keep you posted, and we'll be here with you every step of the way.
Peace out, everybody.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate you.
See you.